Hi, comrades! This is a follow-up to last Friday's video because there were some comments on that one that gave me more ideas of things to talk about. So shout out to those commenters, and also be sure and go and watch that video once you're finished with this one. Thank you. I think that one of the hardest parts of getting into reading is finding good books to read. There are a lot of books out there, and a lot of them probably are not for you. So how does one find good, engaging books to read? These are my tips. First tip, if you don't know where to start, it never hurts to start by working your way through a recommended reading list. When I was just starting out on my reading journey, the list that I was working through was called Time Magazine's 100 Best Books of All Time, or something like that. Don't worry, I'll link it in the description for after the video's over. I used this list very effectively as a jumping off point. I did not finish the list, and I have no intention of reading the full list because essentially it did what it needed to do. I was able to find a couple books on that list that really interested me, and from there I was able to find similar authors to those authors, and I followed the rabbit hole down into the world of reading. Now I have a list of books that I personally want to read that is impossibly long, and it all started because I read a few books off of this list. So that's the power of these lists. They're not things that you're required to finish, they're just things that can give you a really good starting off point. You can find ready-made reading lists about basically any genre, any topic, any theme, anything. If you want to get into fantasy, look up best fantasy books of all time. Boom, there's your list. You can do the same thing for science fiction, historical fiction, big books, books written by women, books written by authors from other countries, romance novels, horror, whatever you want. You should also utilize Reddit for getting book recommendations. Reddit is especially helpful when you're looking for books that are similar to a book that you liked. For example, you could search books like Braiding Sweetgrass Reddit and then get tons of great suggestions. If you have a favorite author, you can also find similar authors using Reddit in that same exact way. It's wonderful. Another option to find good books to read is you could check out my personal What I Read This Month series here on YouTube. There's a playlist I made of all the videos. And you could check out some of the stuff I've been reading. Might be worth checking out. I don't know. All of the books that sound interesting that you find on lists online, all of the books that are recommended to you, any book that you see or hear about that sounds mildly interesting to you, you should write them all down somewhere. I use my notes app to keep track of all the books that I want to read. You could do that too. You could use a different app. You could literally just use a notebook or a piece of paper, so long as you're writing down all these books that sound interesting to you. And once you've got a list, it's time to do some gardening. Metaphorically. Because next tip, when it comes to finding out if you're gonna like a book or not, it is very helpful to be able to read a sample of the book. Google Books and Amazon give you the ability to read samples of the books that you're interested in. Now that said, do not use Amazon to buy your books. Amazon is not a bookstore. Amazon is actively trying to screw over bookstores. Amazon is not a good ethical company, so I don't recommend Amazon at all. I don't use Amazon at all. However, you can look up books on Amazon and then click look inside and get samples of what's inside of these books that you're interested in, and that might really help you in narrowing down which books you want to read and which books you actually don't want to read. The same thing with Google Books. You can search up basically any book on Google Books and they will give you a sample to look inside of. That is huge. That is really going to help you lock in which books seem interesting or fun or intriguing and which ones you don't like the style of or they strike you as boring, that kind of thing. It is a very useful tool to have, so I highly recommend doing that for every book on your list. Next tip, you can also use Goodreads or Storygraph to see reviews of the books by people who have read them. Goodreads is a great place for checking reviews from other readers. However, I don't personally use Goodreads to write reviews myself or to track what books I'm reading. I use Storygraph, and the reason why I do that is because Goodreads is owned by freaking Amazon. Gosh, dang it. Next tip, be willing to quit a book. Do not be a completionist. When you are a completionist, you have to read a book called Woe, and it's the worst book that you've ever read in your life, and you hate every second of it, but for some reason you just keep reading it even though it's awful. Why did I read Woe? Anyways, look, You don't want to read a book that is boring to you. So if you're trying to force yourself to read a book that you don't like, you're just going to lose your passion for reading. More often than not, you're not going to pick up the book to keep reading, and then you're going to get stuck on it, and then you're going to be missing out on good books that you would have enjoyed. So don't suffer through a bad book or a book that doesn't appeal to you. Just return it to the library. Get something else that's going to get you going. The whole point of all of these tips is to try to help you find books that are engaging to you and find authors that excite you. And once you've found that, you can dig into those authors and those books that you like. Of course, it is great to branch out and try books from different genres. Try reading books that maybe you wouldn't normally read. That's awesome. I think you'll really broaden your horizons of what you're capable of reading if you do that from time to time. But also, if you're reading a book, any book, even the Bible, don't keep reading a book that you don't like because, come on, it's just, am I right? You know what I mean? And here's the thing, there are all sorts of reasons to stop reading a book. It could be boring, the content could be awful. I was just reading a book the other day and I chose to quit it because the plot got so awful. And I am definitely going to be ranting about it in my What I Read in October video. So if you are interested in hearing about that in detail, subscribe and wait for the end of the month and you will see that insane rant. But oh my goodness, there are definitely reasons to quit reading books. I'm telling you that. I think those are the tips that I have this time. Keep leaving comments if you have even more tips because those are really fun to read. And we keep getting closer and closer to becoming the perfect readers just through our collective knowledge. It really says something for the power of community and valuing human life over corporate profit, doesn't it? The point is, hey, read books. It's fun. Hopefully these tips can help you track down interesting, good, better books. And once you've found some good books, hopefully they lead you down the rabbit hole of finding even more similar good books and other similar authors who are also making good books, and you can just fill up your reading list to an impossible degree and then be like me. Wow, good. I have 3 huge videos coming up soon. Every other Friday they're going to be coming out. I'll give you a teaser of what one of them is. It's going to be me ranking every single Winnie the Pooh movie ever made. If that doesn't sound like good content and what the internet was for, I don't know what is or what does. So, there are reasons to subscribe and like videos and leave comments and all that stuff. And I feel good about this. Thank you for watching. And as always, Free Palestine.